Right, hopefully in this video I'm going to be going over some misconceptions. One about the game, two about me. I'm trying to do them in as a oneer to try and save time. And I'm also going to alternate between a game misconception and a me misconception, just to try and hopefully keep your interest. So if you want to get all the game misconceptions, you're going to have to listen all about me. First one. For those that don't know, I am the spreadsheet guy. I'm pretty sure at this point we've all seen something along the lines of this, which shows the DPS track of every AR, and you can have them for whatever weapon, but this puts them sort of like in a ranking order. The problem is this is misleading, simply due to the fact that we have things like multipliers in the game. So the moment we add something like, because pretty much everyone puts damage to targets out of cover on their AR, so just adding in 10% damage to targets out of cover on the weapons that can have it. Bighorn, Capacitor, Eagle Bearing, Chameleon can't. However, Capacitor has 12% damage to armor. We get this, which is, in a sense, a lot more accurate. If you want to go further in depth, I have covered this in a full playlist for every single weapon in the game, minus marksman rifles. If you are so inclined, feel free to click on the playlist tab and then find this meta testing, division meta testing. There's 8 videos. I go through there's 2 videos for ARs because I forgot to include named, then SMG, shotguns, pistols, etc, etc, and then there's a final one where I basically compile the top 5 weapons from each class and then test them. Anyway, right, DPS. I see a lot of people saying like, oh, DPS doesn't actually mean what people think it means. It is quite literally damage per second. It is the amount of damage that you do per unit over a set period of time, depending on how quick your AR actually fires. In the case of FAMAS, it's the average damage that you will do in 3.33 seconds. Now, when we say DPS, well, when I say DPS, I will most likely mean burst DPS. This is your damage per magazine. If you reload and then continue firing on a single target, that is your sustained DPS. There are ways in which we can alter this and mess it up slightly that will give misleading results. I have seen a few videos of people do this and they claim things on the lines of ACR can do more DPS than a FAMAS. I have a god rolled FAMAS with killer, a god rolled ACR with killer. And as we're going to test here, this is FAMAS. It cannot kill this name delete. We're going to swap to our ACR and we're going to see if this can kill name delete. No, it can't, but it actually did more damage. So we're just going to move a few more things around. We're going to put maybe just some foxes back on. And then we're going to try again. So we're going to set this back to 5 meters just so that we can at least say every single one of our bullets hit the head. So, FAMAS again, headshots, didn't kill the name delete. Reset. Can the ACR kill the name delete now? Oh, look at that. The ACR killed the name delete. Does this mean that the ACR is out DPSing the FAMAS? Absolutely, categorically not. Just because you're able to kill something does not mean you're able to actually do more DPS, nor does being able to increase your overall magazine size. It's your magazine output. See, the difference here is, as we are able to show with a direct comparison, FAMAS with its base with DTOC and then ACR with its base with DTOC, RPM, mag size, reload, optimal range, and then magazine damage. Hopefully this will show the difference in, despite the fact that the FAMAS has higher burst as well as higher sustained DPS, the overall magazine of output of the ACR is higher, which means if you have a lower DPS styled build and you're going more for just overall output, the ACR will outperform the FAMAS in this situation. But it does not mean you stand a better chance of killing or doing more DPS with something like the ACR over the FAMAS. Now, luckily the game actually helps us out with highlighting this fact. We can use the FAMAS here, and we hit, at one point there we hit like 5.5 mil, but we'll go with 5.4 mil on the DPS, just on the right hand side. Reset this, swap it over to the ACR, and I'll just give you guys a minute to just, I don't know, place your bets. What one's technically going to do more DPS according to the game. Just remember as well, the FAMAS did not kill the target. ACR We hit a 5.1 that there at one point, but we killed the target. So despite the fact that the FAMAS is able to do 5.9, 5.6, I actually can't remember if I reset the thing. But yeah, like the FAMAS will always, no matter what build you run or how you want to work it, the FAMAS will always be the highest DPS AR. Will it always be best in slot depending on your build? No, because maybe your build will benefit more from magazine output over actual DPS. This is something that I will leave to you and your discretion as to whether you feel it is worthwhile or not. Right, misconception about me. Yay! That I am a build Karen. This actually kind of makes me laugh, this statement. An elitist piece of crap that tells you if you're not running 100% meta, 100% optimal, 100% of the time, just uninstall. No, I actually couldn't give less of a crap about your build. I really don't actually care what build you are running as long as it isn't a detriment to the team and it works. A lot of my detractors at this point are going to go, but you made a video calling out people's builds for XYZ. Yeah, they were running 5-piece Badger Tough. This is not a build, this is a waste of time. If it's a build that works, fine. Even with where I've called out other YouTubers and said XYZ, their build doesn't work, their build clearly does work. Their build doesn't work as how they've portrayed it. This is my issue. This is why I am grumpy. If you have a build that is put together and it works and there is a clear goal in mind for that build, I really couldn't give a fuck how good or bad it is. What I care about is when you make a bad build and then go, oh yeah, the only legendary solo build you'll ever need. No. Essentially, my point is I don't like clickbait. I've done a few build videos and I just call them what they are. I've done one where I did Dread Edict with Aces and it's just called a Dread Edict Aces build. I directly compare it to an M1A Focus build because that's how it feels, that's the level of damage it does. I go over the pros and cons, and what you do with the information from there is entirely up to you. That is all I do. I disseminate information as best as I can to give you guys the best information so you can make the best informed and educated decision on how you want to play and build. If you want to make a 5-piece Brazos build, that's a you problem, that's not a me problem. If I then tell you that that 5-piece Brazos build isn't doing what you think it's doing because math, that again is a you problem, not a me problem. I am not a build Karen, despite how I may come across. I will give you the best information that I can. What you do with it is up to you. If you want to listen, listen. If you want to take it on board, take it on board. If you want to completely disregard it, disregard it. But if you tell me things like Bighorn is best AR in the game and I can prove you wrong, you don't get to argue. Suck it up. You were wrong. Just for a point in case, this is my mortar build. This is objectively bad for a mortar build. Like, I should be using Wyvern and Hannah Yu rather than 2-piece Empress and Glass Cannon. Why do I run it like this? Because I like it. It's fun. It's a video game. I have fun. Up next is the 3 forms of DPS. We have Burst DPS, Sustained DPS, and Total Magazine DPS. Now, we've loosely gone over Total Magazine DPS, and it is quite simply, when all is said and done, what is your average damage that you will do from start of magazine to end of magazine. Although technically magazine DPS is not DPS, as DPS in its entirety is calculated or defined as average damage per unit per second between start of cast and end of cast. What this means in Division is you've just reloaded a magazine, you're about to shoot a new enemy per unit. What is the average damage that you will do per second from when you start shooting to when you stop shooting, and that stop can be anything. Enemy dies, need to reload, you just get shot back too hard and need to stop shooting. What is your average DPS? Now, this game, because that's an MMO definition, if any of you ever play World of Warcraft, this game takes this a step further, as do most other games, to be fair. We have burst DPS and sustained DPS. So for this, burst DPS still gets the description of average deep damage per unit per second between start of cast and end of cast, which we've just gone over. Sustained DPS is average damage per unit per second between start of cast to enemy destruction. This means you can reload, you can reposition, you can do what you need to do in between, and it will calculate your sustainable DPS. Now thankfully the game actually has a really cool way of showing this for us. So if we just casually hang out at the range, this is on normal, we can start shooting targets. This is all burst DPS per unit. Every time the target goes up, it dies, new unit pops down, that is a new unit. We can tell this because, as you can tell on the right hand side, notice that when the target dies, the DPS calculator magically does this really cool thing of it stops tracking the DPS. I would now like to introduce you to Bob, Harry and George. If Bob takes one magazine to kill, as long as you do not pause for an extended period of time, it's all burst DPS. You can pause slightly, maybe to quickly reposition, duck in cover, but as long as it doesn't really exceed your reload, it's all burst DPS. Even if you swap from Bob 1, killing him, to Bob 2, that will still be burst DPS. If Harry takes one magazine to kill, but despite the fact that you know he only takes one magazine to kill, you put 25 bullets into him, you've got 25 bullets left, you reload, and then you put another 25 bullets into him, killing him, that was sustained DPS. However, this leaves us with George, good old Georgie boy here, figure 11 target, god that's nostalgic. He will take 3 magazines to kill. No matter how you want to work this, no matter what you want to do, you have to go into sustained DPS. You just have to. An easy way to show this, or for people to understand this, is use weapons that one-shot. Regulus, good example. Anything MMR related that is able to maintain stacks of Headhunter. See, the caveat to any DPS calculation, whether it be burst or sustained, is it's per unit. So, as long as you have not forced off your cast time, such as reloading or killing your target, even if you shoot target A for 10 bullets, go to target B for 10 bullets, and then go back to target A, as long as you haven't reloaded or stopped your casting or shooting or whatever, is still on burst DPS. The burst DPS will be diminished because of those 10 bullets that you put somewhere else. However, this is typically said in a rather interesting moniker that goes around, is missed bullets do not count towards DPS. So if swapping targets mid-firing is equatable to just missing shots, then there would be no such thing as burst DPS. It would all be sustained DPS, because one bullet would hit, there's your burst DPS. One bullet would miss, we're now in sustained DPS. No, that's not how this works. As long as your casting, shooting is up, you are in burst DPS per unit. Again, just to show, I hit several targets there, but that's all burst DPS. What if I just do it this way and just start one-shotting everything? This is all burst DPS because each time it's a separate unit. Just because I'm swapping target does not put me into sustained DPS calculations. I'm still in burst DPS calculations. Even if I reload to shoot a separate target, that is still burst DPS. If I need to reload to kill the same target, as I will do here, I've purposefully lost stacks to shooting the body. I've had to reload. I'm still shooting the same target. This is now sustained DPS. It is very rare that on a decent DPS build you will go into sustained DPS outside of things like Chungas or raid bosses. 99% of the time you will be in burst DPS calculations. Time for another misconception about me, that I am a clout chaser by going after bigger YouTubers. Yes and no. Yes, simply because it's a happy byproduct of what I do. I'm not directly going after them for the sake of chasing clout. I'm going after them because misinformation is the bane of my existence. I hate clickbaiting, and I personally feel that in a game like this, having correct information is more beneficial than having someone that you actually like and enjoy listening to. Like, I would rather listen to an absolute asshole with the right info than the most lovable and likable person on the planet who's spouting absolute nonsense. That's just me though. I'm an Aspergic freak. So no, I'm not clout chasing because it's not my goal to destroy these people. It's to put out the correct information, or the best information that I can at that time with the resources that I have available, so that you guys are able to make up an educated decision on how you want to play. I am clout chasing for the simple fact of, by me doing this and how I plan on doing it, I will be getting clout from those people. I am not going out of my way exactly to be a clout chaser. I don't particularly like making videos of where I have to reference an individual and then categorically prove them wrong on repeat. I don't like doing it. I'm pretty sure, well, I've had it several times of a lot of my regular viewers say, I understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, but they don't like it when I do these videos. I feel you. I get that. That is very important. You're here to relax and get information and chill. You're not here to get into the middle of a YouTuber fight. I get it. However, for me personally, like I said, I would rather be the dickhead with the right information than the lovable character who puts out crap. That's just the way I am. I'm not going to change. On the flip side to this, I have had a few people that give, admittedly, I either get people that sort of go, I'm an asshole, I don't want to watch you, which is, I get it, but it's kind of rude. You could at least, have a conversation. But then I get like some amazing people. I had one not too long ago, and I posted it in my Discord, and everyone had a good laugh at it because they're like, well, he's fucking right. And he basically just said if he was my agent, he would want to try and make me more personable. As much as he likes the fact that I'm able to back up my arguments with math and I show it and I walk people through it, he was basically saying he doesn't want to watch me despite the fact that I have the right info because I am an arsehole, essentially. Now, it is up on screen now. Feel free to pause it and read it if you wish. However, on the other side to that, these are just some of, well, this was pretty much the extent of the conversation we had after it. Not sure if you're able to read it, but my rebuttal to it is, just want to point out that it's not like I don't disagree with him, but I am what I am, an Aspergic. I've been like this for 33 years. I'm not going to change anytime soon. Besides, you guys bully me enough, so it balances out. And you've got Jimmy coming in saying that he's not wrong. Content is only as good if you present it as such. I mean, feel free to read it as well. But yeah, I'm not directly going out of my way to be a clout chaser. It's just a happy byproduct of what I do. And I do take the feedback, the constructive feedback that you guys give me very seriously. It is posted in our clan Discord, pretty much every single word of it. And we talk about it. feel free to join the Bro Squad Discord if you want, so that you can join in the conversation as well. The conversations never normally last that long, simply just due to the fact that I don't particularly like talking about people behind their back. I would much rather they be involved in the conversation. So if you are someone that has feedback for me, you've left comments, feel free to join the Discord. Yeah, it's a non-toxic place, but if you've got constructive criticism, and if that involves calling me an arsehole and you have evidence and points to prove it, we all sit there and listen. It's fine. Up next we have multipliers. People still get these confused, and I've even seen people just outright get these wrong, and then they try and advise people on what is completely incorrect. A lot of it is just incorrect terminology, and I am partial to this as well, simply just due to the fact that there is, despite how some people get grumpy at me for it, there is no handbook on the correct terminology that we should use in or out of division. So we're essentially free to make up what we want when we want and call it whatever. However, there are terminologies that the community at large has agreed on, and a lot of these I am still learning. A lot of the mistakes that I have made is just getting the wording wrong, and a lot of arguments I've had is we're both saying the exact same thing, but I'm saying ABC, they're saying XYZ, just because we use different terminologies. However, things like weapon damage, admittedly the game doesn't make this very clear. Spotter is a very good example of this. If you've got a Fenris chest with Spotter, it will say amplifies weapon and skill damage by 15% to pulsed enemies. If you've got Closer, which is Perfect Spotter, it says increases weapon and skill damage to pulsed enemies. They are both actually unique multipliers, but they're just worded incorrectly because reasons. Another brilliant example of this is Sadist, Ignited, and there's another one, I want to say Eyeless, I think. It will say plus 20% weapon damage to blinded, ignite on fire, or bleeding targets. It is not plus 20% damage. Now, throughout the background footage here, if you've been paying attention, these are the numbers I have been hitting. Body non-crit, body crit, head no crit, head crit. This is without Sadist active. Now, if you read Sadist, again, you will do plus 20% weapon damage to bleeding enemies. However, if we bleed an enemy and then shoot them, as I just did, and just add 20% weapon damage to the equation that I have just shown, this is apparently the damage we should be getting. A head crit should be hitting 820,324. This is not true. Now in the footage you can see behind you, I'm hitting 905k. It soon then jumps to over 1 million when I go through to their health. Just to show this, here is a quick screenshot. Bleeding target, Sadist is active, 905,634. What's going on here? Well, it's actually really quite simple. We're not getting plus 20% weapon damage. We're getting a 0.2 unique multiplier. So just to show this, lovely spreadsheets again, as you can see, head crit 905,634. That's the number we were hitting. Right there where the arrow is in AMP 2, 0.2. Our all weapon damage is back to 1 rather than 1.2. It is not giving us plus 20% weapon damage. It is giving us a unique multiplier. This is true for Ignited as well as Eyeless. There is Eyeless. Same thing, reads the exact same way. We're just going to put this on our weapon, run back down to the range and retest. Now, a lot of the numbers will be getting skewed when I do hit health targets, because one thing that is then happening is on the health target I get AMP 3, which will be 0.21, which will be multiplying my damage even further. So against health targets I will be doing more. 1 kill, 2 kill, 3 kill, 4 kill, reload, just to make sure. There we are, 905,634. When we go through to health, we hit over 1 million. Knowing your multipliers is a very different thing. Now, your DPS calculations are split into 3 parts, and weapon talents are split into 4. You have your test base, which is all weapon damage. The weapon you have on your AR, for example, the top stat will be 15% AR damage, and whatever bonuses you have, if you have them or have them selected from your specialization. This will give you your test base. When you look in your stat screen, that is the number you will see. You then have your multipliers. This is total weapon damage, critical hit damage, headshot damage, damage to armor, damage to targets out of cover, and whatever unique multipliers you may or may not have. This then, when calculated all together, will give you your DPS. Where talents then come in is some talents will only affect your all weapon damage. These are typically weaker, but they affect your overall build. Then you have talents that only affect multipliers. These are going to be technically stronger. Typically you will see things like 20% weapon damage, but when it comes to critical hit damage it will be like 40 or 50. However, for these to take effect you will need to crit. They are conditional. You then have total weapon damage amps. Now, although these are technically a multiplier, the difference here is all total weapon damage, well, all stats really of the same type add together. So we have all weapon damage talents, we have conditional multiplicative talents. These are things like on headshot get more headshot, on kill get more crit. We also have talents that give total weapon damage. The 4th type is unique multipliers. These are things like ignited, eyeless, ranger is one. Now, to show the difference between this, we're just going to use 20% as a blanket. What I'm about to show is completely made up. We're going to use the build above. Now for this one, I'm hoping you can see where it says Carbine 7 AWD is 1.2. This is the following calculations: 25% total weapon damage, 164 critical hit damage, 100 headshot, no DTA, 0.18 detox, 0.3 amp. And what this gives us is this. So adding 20% weapon damage has increased our overall hit damage as well as our DPS. Now if we do the same with total weapon damage, because it's a multiplier of the same type as other total weapon damage, they will add together. So 0.25 plus 0.2 is 0.45. All weapon damage has gone back to 1. So we have 100% all weapon damage. Total weapon damage is 0.45. In terms of DPS, this is what it looks like. It is a huge increase over all weapon damage. Now we have plus 20% conditional multiplier. I've gone with crit, so you can see critical hit damage is now 1.84 rather than 1.64. Total weapon damage is back to 0.25. All weapon damage is still at 1. Our overall output now is actually diminished simply because we're only affecting a certain amount of our damage. However, conditional multipliers do tend to be larger than 20. Now for the big boy, unique multiplier. Everything's back to sort of how it is at base. Total weapon damage, crit damage, headshot, bloody bloody blah. However, amp 2 has a 0.2 in. That is 20% amplified damage. Such as ignited. Again. This gives us the largest increase. This is now our DPS, which is huge. However, in order of priority, I would suggest this. So, unique multiplier, low value, as in it typically only comes in like 10, 15, 20%, but a unique multiplier is going to affect every single stat you have on your build. A conditional multiplier, high value, such as they typically come in like 40, 50 or 60%, but they only really affect a single stat. Headshot, crit damage, etc, etc. Weapon damage talents, medium value, meaning they come in like 30%, 20 to 30%, but they do affect every single stat that you have in your build, so it's a small contribution everywhere. Then there's the total weapon damage talent. There's only one of these, it's measured, and measured is ass. Don't use it. Now, despite the fact that I've just put up that priority listing, unique multiplier, conditional multiplier, all weapon damage, total weapon damage. There is one caveat to this, and that is getting them to synergize in your builds. Typically, you will be better off with an all weapon damage talent such as Optimist over something like Flatline unless you have Spotter on your chest. However, Optimist with Perfect Glass Cannon will beat Spotter and Flatline. Another misconception about me. We're nearly done, I promise. I think so, at least. That I don't take into consideration other people's opinions and utility and versatility of builds. I absolutely bloody do. It's the main reason I've only just started using strikers, because there was no versatility and utility in strikers prior to what we currently have now. And opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one and they all point down. The issue with opinions is I don't do, or I try to stay away from opinions on this channel. I really couldn't care for an opinion. I don't really care for my own opinions because I'm a messed up puppy. Now, to add some context to this, I am hiding names, don't worry. People who think Backfire is trash are trash. Just get over 95% bleed, hazard build, and you good. The shit shreds, you don't need a damn healer. Yes, but at that point, you compromise what would equate to be near enough 60% of your total potential DPS. At which point, the majority of other SMGs in the game will outperform it. So why would you then compromise your entire build just to run a weapon that barely gets within the top 10 SMGs in the game? Or I can just run, I don't know, the top 5 SMGs in the game, not have the weapon try and kill me, and still do more DPS. I get that everyone's entitled to their opinion, but some people are just fucking dumb. This is my most recent favourite one. Bighorn, throw some weapon handling on, detox onto your build, so Foxes, problem solved. I love Bighorn Striker's build. Does it shred as fast as FAMAS? No. It hits marginally softer, but after building Strikers and Obliterate stacks, you do a decent long range shooter when aiming down sights. Typically, you'd be running Foxes anyway, so you're literally going from 18% detox to 8% detox. So detox on your weapon is actually more valuable than Foxes. And aiming down sights with Bighorn is the worst thing you can actually do with it, because it's a rifle at that point, but it doesn't have the intrinsic headshot damage of a rifle. It's got headshot damage on it rather than detox. The overall DPS is low. The accuracy is horrible. It literally becomes a subpar AR to the worst rifle in the game, bar none. I tried explaining this and I got saying it doesn't actually compete with other ARs. And so it's sure it does. My Bighorn shotgun combo does compete with an AR shotgun combo in terms of utility, because of the Bighorn, it's an AR rifle. Can basically have a rifle with health damage. That's not going to help you without equipping a rifle. You're stuck on your math and numbers, my guy. That doesn't tell you the whole tale. The funny part is, right, shock or a gasp, it actually does. It tells you everything you need to know, because math doesn't have a bias, doesn't have an opinion. It's not going to sit there and go, but I really like this, therefore it's the best. Math is going to tell you what it can and cannot bloody do. Yes, I trust my math, but I do still have opinions, and I normally base my opinions on fucking math. Now, if you like Bighorn because you like Bighorn, you get along with it, it's your favourite weapon, fine. I'm not going to tell you to stop using it. If you come at me though, saying Bighorn is the best weapon in the game, it can compete with XYZ, when it factually, provably, several times on this channel, I'm not the first one to fucking do it. It's kind of a big thing within the whole meta of the game, that pretty much every exotic AR other than Capacitor is a piece of shit. If you come at me and go, oh yeah, but Bighorn's really good, it can do X, Y, Z, and I can prove it's not, that's not an opinion, that's you throwing falsehoods around. So, if you have an opinion, I will entertain it. But if you start throwing falsehoods around, I'll tell you to fuck off. It's that simple. A lot of the time, people go, oh, you don't like opinions. Well, you've not given me an opinion, you've given me a falsehood, which I can disprove on repeat. I do take into account people's opinions. One of the best and funniest ones that's ever happened on this channel is I personally believe that Shield Splinterer is greater than FAMAS. I've done varying testing, which can go one way or the other. They're like within a ball hair of each other in terms of total DPS. Turns out though, much to my dismay, FAMAS is still technically better than Shield Splinterer. I don't like this, and as much as I will want Shield Splinterer to be better than FAMAS, because that is my opinion, I'm not going to tell people that Shield Splinterer is outright better than FAMAS. I have done a video where I believe objectively saying, not just in DPS, but in terms of handling, output, sustainable DPS, overall performance, as to why Shield Splinterer is better than FAMAS. But in terms of just outright Unga Bunga DPS, damage down range, I'm sorry to tell you that FAMAS is still going to win. I'm also sorry to tell you that there is absolutely nothing you can do on your Bighorn build that will allow it to compete with the top 5 ARs, because it just bloody can't. Right, final misconception, at least for this video, and this has gone on for far too long. Jesus Christ, I do apologise. Measured. I think we've established time and time again that in PvE, measured is about as useful as the Kremlin in diplomatic relations. Oh god, I'm getting political. Right. Measured only really offers, in total, from not having a weapon talent on a high-end DPS build, measured only offers, on average, about a 2% increase in DPS. When you factor in everything, it's only really about a 2% DPS increase. That's both sides of the talent. The apartment actually fares slightly better. This can go up to about a 7.8% increase in DPS. However, considering we have things like Optimist, which is like near enough a 15% increase in DPS, Strained is like a 20% increase in DPS, yeah, your measured is doing somewhere between fuck all and you need a new talent. However, every time I mention something along the lines of measured is bad, someone somewhere creeps in and goes, oh, but measured is meta in PvP. No. Just no. See, the reason for this is, measured, top half of the magazine has 20% fire rate, but negative 30% weapon damage. The bottom half of the magazine has negative 20% fire rate, but plus 30 total weapon damage. Now, I could be wrong here, but from my understanding that the typical PvP build doesn't really run a lot of weapon damage. Potentially looking something along the lines of this, we've got Foxes, Contractors, Grupo, Fenris, Cheska, and I've got Walker Harris in there. I couldn't really figure out what was going on. Unbreakable for the chest talent. I don't know what you use as a backpack talent. I've put Concussion in thinking, hey, you guys go for heads, so there we are, headshot, total weapon damage. Now this build gives us a total of 5% weapon damage. Now because Division cannot go into negatives, bar none, what is 5% all weapon damage minus 30% all weapon damage? 0. Now what the all weapon damage part looks like, as you can hopefully see, the top build has 5% weapon damage, 15 spec, 15 weapon from having the AR itself. The rest of the stats are the same. And then for the big DPS at the bottom, yeah, we go from 3.3 mil to 3.2 mil. 3.36 to 3.24 for losing 5% all weapon damage. Because that's all measures are going to do. Although it says negative 30, it's not going to put you into a deficit. It's just going to take away that 5% all weapon damage. So the only thing you're actually gaining at this point is just the fire rate. So if we now calculate in just the fire rate with no all weapon damage at all, this is your DPS. You go from 3.36 mil to 3.8 mil. Yay. That's just pure fire rate. That's all it is. Now, due to how fire rate works as a multiplier towards your DPS, if you just add something in that, I don't know, gives 20% amplified damage, like, I don't know, Sadist, Eyeless, Ignited, this is what you get. All I've done for this is, rather than use Walker Harris mask, I'm now using a Fenris mask, and the chest is Ridgeway's. Weapon talent, Sadist. Now, I'm not a PvP player. However, DPS is DPS. It's calculated and works the exact same whether it be PvE or PvP. And measured is so bloody easy to beat that it's rather comical. And the amount of people are like, oh, measure's meta in PvP. How? Like, there's literally no universe where the math doesn't lie. And the math says that no matter how you want to work it, or where you want to put it, or what situation you're in, measured... rubbing my hairy balls across the screen does more damage than fucking measured. There is no way in which measured is the PvP meta. There are so many ways in which you can outperform it. It's actually rather comical. I just kind of feel like people are just lazy and just haven't tested or tried varying different things. Yeah. Now, I always get, because I'm not like a PvP person, I always get people say like, oh, like I can show you videos of me like absolutely ruining people with measured. That's fine, but are they running the exact same build down to the exact same decimal stat that you are running with the exact same weapon? The only difference is they have a different talent. And do you start shooting each other in the head at the exact same time? Until I see that clip, no, measured is not meta in PvP. I'll argue it. I don't care. I'm not a PvP player, but I don't care because the math is there. The math doesn't lie, as we've already discovered in, like, do I take opinions into account? If it's not based in math, I don't give a fuck. The math says measured is a waste of time, whether it be PvP or PvE. There are so many different ways in which you're able to outperform it. So until I see two people with the exact same build, like, I mean perfectly exact weapon, exact same expertise on everything, same armor values, same health values, same crit chance, same crit damage. One person's running measured, the other one is running Optimist. Because Optimist out DPS is measured by a hell of a lot. The only thing I can say is the only reason just to why you're winning with measured is because you probably fired first. In a game like Division, typically he who fires first wins. As well as, I want to point out that no matter what you do with your AR and measured, if someone is within 7 meters and they have a double barrel, even if you do have 6 blue armor cores, it's good night, sweetheart. Anyway, I need to end this video before you get to watch me die again, because I've been away from Division for like 5 days playing Darktide. And yeah, skill fade is a genuine thing. God, I suck coming back to this. Anyway, that has been a list of random misconceptions within the game. I am planning on doing more of these. I've actually got a lot lined up. It's just finding the motivation to do them. Anyway, in the meantime, have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.